It has to do with the question I asked a few days ago. I'm gonna try to, uh, yeah, I'm not sure how to ask it specifically, but basically, I started treatment with a trauma therapist for complex PTSD, and a lot of old stuff naturally comes up, and you're supposed to feel those suppressed emotions and reframe your perspective on those past events and whatnot. And
Right.
my question is, and with this work, where it's to develop our gnosis, to know ourselves deeply, and I'm naturally a really over-analytical person, so I'm wondering,
Sorry, did you say that you
how
have
do I,
the
sorry?
PTSD? Sorry, did you say
Oh
you
yeah,
have the PTSD? Okay, okay. Yeah.
complex PTSD, yes.
Okay.
Like probably many of us, lots of complicated childhood things. But
Right.
anyway,
Yeah. Yeah,
my
I mean, we
question
are
is, yeah,
we are all traumatized
yeah,
in our own way, but of course
seriously,
it's all,
exactly,
but sometimes there's specific things that become really strong, and that
exactly.
can manifest into, having an actual diagnosis that gives us a sort of structure to
Hmm.
try and conquer it. But yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's been kind of, I mean, it's been very trippy because I feel like along with this work, I'm and the official, I guess, diagnosis and doing this work with a therapist. Um, it's kind of making me question everything about my identity, but I suppose that's the point of um, all of this deep internal work. But my question to you is understanding where I don't overindulge myself in trying to understand every little aspect of my past, because I just said I'm naturally over analytical, and I think that's my fall. What I mean by that is I know with our meditation practices, it's to be aware of the moment, and if some thoughts come up, it's not rejecting them per se, but trying to understand it. And I think I do that too much. Does that make sense? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think and that's what I mean by I feel like I'm over indulging myself into these thoughts that are coming up, during meditation and whatnot,
Right.
and probably due to all the therapy and such. But I want to ask you, how do you find that balance or kind of a barrier, I guess, where I'm like, okay, this is too much, because it's like I could think about myself and my life and my deep rooted patterns for hours. That's honestly a hobby of mine. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, like, when is too much too much? How do you find that? Yeah, I hope that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go too far down the route of saying it's too much in a way, because I mean the path is really, when we start, as you know, temet noske, know thyself. When we start, our whole inner world and outer world is just us. It's just the self. It's just subconscious. So it's really good to know ourselves in that way. But of course, like you're trying to sort of allude to, uh, we are kind of like a caterpillar trying to come out of its shell, and to have that selflessness, to have that ability to not think of ourselves anymore and actually see reality beyond our own subjectivity. So, and you may already know, but a good practice, during meditation, is to just keep trying to not identify with these thoughts and really observe yourself. So, as you said, we have that practice in meditation to find that stillness, to find that silence. And it's not so much ignoring the thoughts, but just understanding them. And also not identifying with them, really seeing them as like just this, have a curiosity, like another person, like a strange entity or whatever. But what you're saying is that you take too much interest in that. And kind of the
Yeah.
root of that interest is a sort of fascination, you know, uh,
Hmm.
a sort of almost like a hypnotization, which is rooted in our attachments to those same thoughts and our uh, identification, almost believing that, you know, this is us. So there's an attachment there because we really believe ourselves, we enjoy, we like these certain thoughts, we find it interesting. And I would say because you're so analytic, and that's not a bad thing. I know a lot of people who don't have the ability to analyze, and it's a sad state of affairs. We need to be able to analyze. But so for people like that, I usually say, okay, you need to practice analyzation. You need to be interested. You need to know yourself. But for someone like you, I would usually recommend that, look, the ability to analyze, you have a gift. I'm not sure if you're a Virgo, but almost every Virgo I know is very analytical. They overthink. So for people like that, uh, and in particularly women as well for some reason. I'm just stereotyping now that women think a lot, but for people like that, it's best to keep working on finding that peace within ourselves, uh, making the decision not to identify with our past, our personal history anymore, recognizing it as our ego and not really reality of here and now, and really keep working on, you know, say if you have therapy sessions or whatever, I mean, probably best to have your meditations in finding samadhi, finding bliss, peace, and enjoying perhaps like if you can enjoy like an hour of meditation without any thoughts whatsoever, then you'll probably find that when you do go into those thoughts again, you'll have a deep sense of insight into them because you worked more on getting away from that analytic mindset, because it's in your nature to be analytic, so you don't have to make any effort whatsoever to really be that interested or in being analytic and things like that. So yeah, my advice is really to work more on finding, really finding a stillness and a deep connection with your own silent being. Try to have that in your day like 60 to 70%. Because if it's the other way around, like we're analyzing 70% of the time, then it usually dominates any sense of peace. So if you can have the peace for like 70% of the day and only keep a shorter practice of analyzing and comprehending yourself, then that's usually a bit better. But if it's all day, I mean, that if that's how we spend our
Hmm.
day, then yeah, it's easy to get lost in the labyrinth of the analyzing and the thinking, and confusion arises. Remember, confusion is, you know, it is ego, doubt is ego. So it's easy to get lost in all of that, the maze of trying to understand ourselves too much. We need balance, and it's very
Hmm.
understanding becomes natural, you know. In psychologists, they like to analyze, and it's good, but intuitive understanding comes very quickly. It's very simple. It comes from the heart, and that's why this practice of having that deep connection to the inner being is a good is very powerful. Yeah.
I think, well, first, I'm an Aries, but
Oh, okay. Okay.
I, I think I understand all that. I guess theoretically, yes, but I
Mhm.
think what's tripping me up that for me, and I know you have briefly mentioned with your past. Okay, what I have having a hard time understanding is that I have denied a lot of these traumatic experiences for so long so I could survive, essentially move. So now that I'm doing this deeper work to understand myself, I'm in the phase of acceptance of what actually happened was wrong and bad and whatnot. And so with that acceptance stage that I'm in, I think what you're saying, I am over identifying with these events and I see that, but I'm not sure really how I'm supposed to accept that such and such was real, like a real traumatic event for me. While, because with the understanding of oneself, like for instance, as we all do, like I have shortcomings in my personality. Like for me, it's like a temper thing, like irritability and whatnot. So I try and work on that, yes. And in order to work on that, I'm trying to piece together where I may have developed that behavioral pattern. And, you know, I connect it with whatever such and such past event. But then so now I have that baseline understanding of where it came from. And then what do I just let it go? I don't that I think that's kind of where I'm confused. I'm like, oh, I'm like this because of this. And then, okay, understanding, check. But then next, I hope that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you think you know something, you know, you said you do. Okay, check, done. But usually, because this goes deeper into like a deeper form of self-inquiry. Who is it in you that is struggling to accept? Who is it in you that doesn't really still understand what? Who is the I that says, I'm not quite satisfied with this? There's always a sort of a sense of addiction to thinking, right? Beyond all the drug use, beyond all the addiction to caffeine and things like that, beyond sexual addictions, whatever, the first most addiction that we all have, the worst sin of all, is thinking. We're all addicted to thinking without even knowing it. So, and the ego, when it thinks, when it wants to analyze, it wants to consume. It wants to feel satisfied. This is also to do with tantra, right? Which is tantra, not just in a sexual sense, but in a spiritual sense, that we always want to feel gratified. So that gratification can be expressed in feeling like, okay, yeah, I know that now. Okay, done. Check. So, but usually,
Yeah,
there's no real satisfaction there. There's usually always something
yeah.
else that it wants to keep on going. Like, that's not just right. There's something else. And it's
That's
bringing
very true.
awareness to that feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then in those moments of, I guess, unsatisfaction or where I'm like, oh, I'm still searching for an answer, should I just accept the moment as is and be like, you know what? It will come when it comes. I don't have to understand whatever wiring of myself in this particular situation. Because, like, say I made some social faux pas, right? And then the overthinking starts, and you're like, oh,
Right.
I did this probably because of this, and this is how I reacted, and whatnot. So
Well,
when
why?
that starts, yeah.
Mm. Well, why do we always have to add things, right? If we say, okay, if this comes, should I just tell myself this? Do we have to keep adding things, right? So it's really
Oh.
about it's more about self-observation. Observe every single damn thought that comes into the mind, right? Uh, Because
Oh.
observe the nature of it, and not just observe that, but if you want to access a deeper intelligence and comprehension of it, also connect with the body, because there's an intelligence there. The body knows, it feels what is right, and it can give you a sense of navigating the emotions that are deeper within the psyche and trauma, right? Because trauma is not in the mind. Trauma is in the emotions, in the body. So while connecting to that, and if you see, okay, you get a bit of enlightenment, a bit of understanding about yourself, right? A bit of temet noske. Well, and then you say, okay, but what should I do now? Don't have to do anything. Observe that voice that says, what do I have to do now? So it's a constant going back, going back, going back, and observing, and just shining light onto that. So
Oh, okay. So observe the fact that I want to do more. Like I want to. Okay. I
yes,
think I
doing
understand.
and
Then,
and then And
Hmm.
that's a good point to deepen meditation, to feel the energetic charge of that restlessness, of that sadness, of that. And that's when, at that point, that's when you can sometimes, people cry in meditation because they finally realize, oh, they see this thing, that the pain that's in there, and then they finally give awareness to it instead of acting it out unconsciously, and they feel the intuitive way to release it, and then they cry sometimes. They say, oh, and that's when you overcome, trauma, right? Or you start to heal your trauma.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
I need to do less. I think that really resonated with me.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, my tendency is to just I need to know everything for sure. Okay, thank you. Does that mean I have an overactive some chakra then you think? Energetic center that I'm
Uh, with the chakras, probably to do with maybe the crown and third eye, because you really want to see and know everything, right? And a little too,
Mhm.
you have it's good that you have this good imagination, but it's like overactive, right? But of
Yes.
course, all the chakras, the whole energy system. Uh, oh, my cat wants to go in the wardrobe. Um, the whole the whole energy system connects to each other. So as I said, those emotions that you aren't also giving attention to arise from the lower chakras too. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for the detailed answer. I'm glad I got to join last second. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad that helped.
Hi, Manoku.
Yeah, she's down there being indecisive, overthinking.